Hi, gummy bears. I'm ready to read chapter 7 of Clementine and the Family Meeting. And look at her sitting there. She does not look happy at all.
Thursday, all anyone could talk about at school was how great it was to have a new kid come into your family, and if babies were just cute pets or really fun toys. The only person who wasn't talking about that was Waylon. Instead, he talked about his new idea for our science project, which was to use his brain waves to cook food. Margaret was waiting for me on the bus home with a pot of orange cheek glitter. When I threw up my arms to protect my cheeks, my backpack fell off and my important papers folder flew out. I had to crawl under the seats to get all my papers back, and then I spent the whole ride trying to wipe the melted slush mud off of them. By the time I got to my apartment, let me tell you, my mood was B-A-D, bad again. It was hard to keep it that way, though. Moisturizer was waiting at the door, and he jumped into my arms and started to lick my face. A little of the blueberry pancake smell from my breakfast was still in the air, mixed up with the smell from the pine branches my mom had brought in to decorate with. Mrs. Watson upstairs was practicing her harp, which makes it sound like we have angels for neighbors. I felt my bad mood starting to melt. "I'm home," I called. My dad came out and put his finger to his lips and pointed to the living room where my brother and my mom were conked out on the living room couch having a nap together. They were covered in trucks and books, and they looked so cute, I wanted to draw a picture of them. "Growing a baby is a lot of work," my dad whispered. "Your mom's going to be a little tired these days."
Can you see the cars on trucks on the back of the couch and all over their blankets?
My dad motioned to the kitchen. "I'm about to make some of my secret recipe toast. You hungry?" I said yes, even though his secret recipe is just put bread in the toaster, because I was starving. When the toast popped up, we carried it to the table and spread it with almond butter, which is like peanut butter, except it doesn't make my little brother's head explode from being allergic. I spread grape jelly over the almond butter and took a big bite. "See, Dad," I said, "how nice our family is this way. 2 and 2, 2 in the living room and 2 in the kitchen." Dad reached over and opened the marmalade, which is a kind of jelly that grown-ups pretend to like, even though it has orange grinds in it, which we throw away for a reason. He spread it over his toast, all the way to the edge, just the way I taught him. Then he took a big bite too. "Yep," he said after a while, "4's a good number. 5's a good number too." 2 asleep and 2 awake, I said. I spread a little extra jelly on the spot I'd missed. 4's a perfect number. My dad took another bite of his toast, then he surprised me. "Clementine, how old are you?" he asked. "You know, 8.5. "No, I mean exactly," he said. "How old are you exactly?" "Down to the hours and minutes?" "Just the days." He took another bite of toast. 3,114 days. My father looked up and stared at me. He dropped his toast. Then he wiped his mouth with his napkin and stood shaking his head. "I can't believe I almost missed this." "Finish up and get your coat on, sport." My dad wouldn't tell me where we were going. Just left a note for my mom and started driving. To Hardware Depot. Like on Sunday. He went right to aisle 7 again. "Dad, did Uncle Frank lose your new tool belt?" "No, he returned it this morning." "Well then, did you lose it?" Most of me wanted the answer to be no because it was so special to him, but a little teeny tiny part of me wanted him to say yes. "Yes, Clementine, I lost something important. It happens to people all the time." "No big deal," he'd say. So you shouldn't get upset when it happens to you. Like if you lose a special hat, for instance. But he didn't say any of that. Clementine, he said instead, in my family, a person's 3,115th day is very special. It's the day when 3,114 days, I corrected him. Oh, right. You look older than that today. It got me confused. He winked. Anyway, it's the day when the people in my family get their first tool belts. He spread his hands out over the display. Which one would you like? There were so many to choose from, which meant so many not to choose, which I hate. Remember when she went shoe shopping? A lot were brown and leathery like my dad's, but they were different brownnesses and different leatherinesses, and some other kinds were black and some were red and some had Velcro fasteners and some had regular belt buckles. They were all beautiful. I picked up one that was butterscotch pudding, colored with silver hooks like my dad's, and started to wrap it around my waist. May I help you? In Hardware Depot, the salesperson wore yellow aprons with name tags on them. The one who had snuck up on us was named Chuck. My partner and I are getting a tool belt today, my dad said. He put his arms around my shoulders. Salesman Chuck bent his head way over as if it was a really long way down to look at such a little kid, and then he looked up at my dad and winked. I think I have just the thing for you folks, he said. Follow me.
There's the salesman, Chuck. I guess Hardware Depot is supposed to be like our Home Depot, right? There was something about the way he winked at my father that I didn't like he was sharing some kind of grown-up only joke with him. But I dropped the belt and we followed him anyway. And you will not believe where he took us. I crossed my arms over my chest and waited for my dad to explain to salesman Chuck that it was my 3,114th day, which means I got a real tool belt, not a pretend one from the little carpenter section. Thank you very much. But my father just said the thank you very much part, and then he picked out a little blue plastic tool belt and dropped it into our cart. But, I started, and then I couldn't talk anymore because I was too confused from feeling crashed down and furious all at once. And besides, if my dad didn't know he'd just ruined my whole day, maybe even my whole life, I was never going to speak to him again. She looks pretty mad. She doesn't want a plastic play tool belt. She wants a real one. He touched my shoulder and pointed to the dumb blue tool belt. This ought to keep your brother happy, he said. Then he turned to the salesman. We're going to head back to aisle 7 now, he told him. My partner needs a real tool belt. And then we left salesman Chuck, who wasn't winking anymore, and went back to aisle 7. This time I didn't have any problem not choosing. I picked the one that looked the most like my dad's, wrapped it around my waist twice, and buckled it. Let's go, I said. Not yet, sport. My dad picked out a wide blue wristband and fastened it around my wrist. It was heavier than it looked. It's magnetized, he explained, for holding the nails and small tools you need for the job. And we still weren't finished. Not much sense owning a tool belt if you haven't got any tools to keep in it, Dad said. We marched over to the tool section and I picked out a tool for every holder on the belt. A hammer, a screwdriver, a wrench, 2 kinds of pliers, a chisel, a tape measure, and a little level. My dad showed me how to hold each one the proper way so I could see which one felt right in my hand. I didn't pick the biggest ones, but they weren't little either. They were just right. I filled my tool belt, which was all M-I-N-E, mine, with tools that were all mine now too, which I turned around. When I turned around, they felt big and bumpy and heavy, but good. And then we clunked over to the cash register and paid for everything and said goodbye, which felt good too. My dad started up the car and we pulled out of the parking lot.
I reached over the seat belt and tilted the visor down until I could see my new tool belt in the mirror. My dad was right. I did look older than 3,114 days. The baby can't touch this tool belt, I said. Absolutely not, my dad agreed. And not Carrot either, I went on. Oh no, not your brother either, Dad said. He'll have to be satisfied with the one we bought for him. It's just for me. It's just for you. Because I'm the oldest. Right. Because you're old enough for the responsibility of wearing an heirloom from the Ming Dynasty. Dad, don't wreck this. Okay, sorry. Really. I put my hand on the hammer and squeezed hard. I'm sorry too, I said. For what? Dad asked. For saying it's unfair about the baby. He's just a baby. He doesn't mean to be unfair. My dad was quiet for a minute. Then he pulled the car over and turned the key off, which meant here comes a serious talk. He turned around to look at me. Clementine, I've been thinking, he said. I tried to put myself in your place, and I asked myself, what if my kids told me they were getting another dad? That they loved me just fine, but they thought our family had room for another father, and they hadn't asked for my opinion. How would I feel about that? I asked myself. And the answer was that I would feel a lot like you seem to feel. But that's not the same thing at all, I told him. Well, not exactly, no. It's different with parents, of course, but the point is, it helped me understand how you felt. I just wanted you to know that I get it. And that is the end of chapter 7. Next time I'll read chapter 8 of the family meeting.